Great. Thank you all again for being here for Digital Day. Again, this is our spring program that's focused on how to grow your business through technology. And then we have our fall business day, Get Down to Business, which is going to be focused on more day-to-day business practices and enhancing your business through day to day. So if you don't already get our emails, be sure to sign up so that you know when those events are coming up in the fall. And then just remember that we are recording all of our presentations, so we will send out an email in a couple of weeks once everything has been uploaded to our YouTube channel. So if there's anything that you missed that you want to check out again, you can go to that YouTube channel and look at all of the presentations. So it is social media or digital day, so that's social media. Have some fun with us on our social media channels. Our tag is at digital day at ADAC, and our handle is ADAC Atlanta. So have some fun and tag us in everything that you're doing today. I want to thank our sponsors. That's Business of Home, Kitchen and Bath Business Magazine, and ASID. And don't forget that after this presentation, we're going to round out the day with our ASID Sip and Stroll. And the showrooms that are participating, and we hope you will all join us for this, are Ernest Gaspard, Travis & Company, Hibachi Designs, and Milieu. And we do have a flyer here that has all of the list of all the showrooms that are participating and their locations. So just pick that up in the back of the room. Okay, and with that, I'm going to kick it off with Chad. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you, guys. We're so happy to be here. Thanks for ADAC for hosting. We're really excited about this presentation. We're going to be talking about leveraging AI for your workflow. So we're going to talk about interior design, in particular how we can use some AI tools. We're going to go through probably a lot of high-level information, but we really want to get down to some practical skills that you can take back to your team, take back to your studios, and actually implement. So if you have a question, we'll have a questions and answer session at the end. Write something down. We'd love to get back to you with a little bit more information on that. But I'm Chad Wilkie. I'm with HLG Studios. I'm a principal of our healthcare firm. We're a small commercial corporate and healthcare firm here in Atlanta. And I'm also on the board of ASID as our professional development director. So we love to put programs like this together to help further the betterment of interior design as a whole. So today I think is a really exciting example of how we can all help raise the bar together. And then I'll let Dawn and Alan introduce themselves.
Dawn.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Haney. I'm the research fellow at ASID, and I have a background in practice as well as education, and my job now is sort of helping us really understand trends and things that are impacting our industry and getting those resources to you so we can build better environments.
And I'm Alan Espinoza. I come from construction, so I've infiltrated this event. But I actually had the privilege of working with great firms like Jacobs, know a lot of interior designers there. Then I worked at Universal Studios, so I got to work on Epic Universe theme park for the Harry Potter world. So that was a dream come true, and getting to work right next to the interior designer, meeting the set designers of the movie was amazing. Now I work in construction technology with Gray Tech, where I help implement Autodesk technology, AI tools with all sorts of subcontractors and designers like yourselves.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about why AI. I think, as interior designers, most of us got into the industry because we love the tactile sense of space. We love in-person meetings. We like to actually see things in person. So it seems a little counterintuitive at times to really rely on something that we really can't see, touch, or feel, or talk to. So I think that's something as an industry we need to talk about together to really understand how we can use it and how we can actually use it together to keep the industry moving forward. I think what we've found over the years there are tools we're seeing, just touching the surface of just other examples of seeing how to paint a room a different color. Real estate agents might use it to stage a room virtually if it's not actually staged at the moment. So there are tools that are just starting to scratch the surface. What I think we're finding, though, is generally those are coming from a place of either sales technique, or we're also seeing a little bit of infiltration from competitive industries that are either trying to sell materials specifically, create the design process, and not necessarily cut out the design, but I think we want to make a concerted effort to make sure we understand other industries are using AI, so how can we use it effectively and communicate how we need to work with it. We're all big proponents of hand drafting and physical samples and meeting in person. So I think what we want to talk through today is what AI can do to actually supplement, augment, and maybe even be that coworker or assistant that you might actually could use. And it's also worth noting, AI, we'll talk a little bit about the history. I like to think of AI as the big general rule of thumb. It's like a powerful calculator. So a scientific calculator, if you put it in the hands of an 8-year-old, they're just going to be playing with it and not really get much out of it. A lot of that are the renderings you might see online of these crazy, dystopian future. But that's AI created just to look into some kind of funky idea, not necessarily with the touch of a designer. But you put that scientific calculator in the hands of a mathematician, and that's where you get the beauty, is you're able to really use these really powerful tools. We need designers that know what they're looking at, that understand scale, proportion, texture, and also making personal connections with people. This is still a people industry overall, so we want to make sure we're keeping those things alive and not cutting out the human touch and the human interaction. So I think with that, let's look at what those tools actually are. So, we'll look a little bit about what we think the history of AI was. So I feel like we've heard a lot about it over the last couple of years, but it's really been around quite a while. So if you want to touch a little bit on kind of the history and tell us how we got here.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that AI now is becoming more friendly to use. It's user-friendly, and I think that's why you're hearing more about it. It's gotten to the point that it's being massively adopted. But AI itself has been around since the 1950s, except there was a different market back then. It was for data scientists, it was for research, it was for a lot of labor-intensive tasks. Chad mentioned earlier, back in the day, just to set up the computers to run some of these softwares, hundreds of thousands of dollars for the computer rooms. When you think about like NASA, the amount of computing power that they needed to do these things, it was insane. But now as technology, both hardware and software, kind of transcends that, you guys have the ability to access these tools on your phone right now. In fact, I'm sitting here with AI on my face. Like I can ask, hey Meta, look and describe what you see. And it's going to take a picture of you guys, and it's going to describe to me, I see a large conference room with a high ceiling, several tables arranged in a U shape with people seated around them. Tables are white, and the chairs are white as well. And it starts to describe all these things. And it's really cool that this is starting to be accessible for everybody. And so in terms of the history of it, I would say, it all started with Alan Turing, if you guys are familiar with the Turing test, of being able to pass that uncanny valley. And I'd say there are some tools out there now that for sure blast through the Turing test. But you start to hear terms like machine learning, you hear neural networks. These are all words that have existed for a while and have been used for research purposes. But in the last few years, you're starting to get all these topics kind of funneling down to these tools now. They're not just these big research topics. Now you have things like ChatGPT. And so you start with a large language model at the bottom. And so if you look at the screens, where we are at right now is we're climbing up this kind of staircase of AI as it's accelerating insanely. The progress, Chad mentioned earlier, the progress over the course of 5 days in 2023 were exponentially larger than the last 50 years. So that's the point that we've gotten to with AI, and that's why you guys are all hearing about it. And so when we talk about large language models, those are the things that you interact with conversationally. Those are the things that help you write emails, to maybe quality check your specifications, anything like that. When you start going into multimodal AI, that's when you start using external sources. It's not just you conversing. It's now the AI can see what you're seeing or hear things and starts describing things. It can identify things. If you guys use Amazon or Google, you can take a picture of anything now and find it on Amazon instantly or something similar to it. And so those types of technologies are now being incorporated into AIs that are trained with vast amounts of knowledge throughout years a lot of stuff that you guys have worked on, which I know it's one of those things that, you balance out the ethics of it. But as AI starts to grow, you start to see more and more use cases for it. Where we are right now, 2025 is going to be the year of large action models. You're going to hear LAMs a lot more. And that's where we start going away from just talking to it taking actions for you. There are AIs now that you can send out to do research for you. ChatGPT has a mode now that you can ask it to research things for you, and it'll go out and do that. The new Alexa update just came out. Now you can have it book all sorts of things for you. So it's taking action. So that's the action part of the large action model. And what it's going to do in the next 5 years, I imagine, is we're going to get to a point where you're going to have agents, and not like talent agents or anything, but you're going to have basically roles. You can create these agents to do the things that you might not want to do, to book meetings for you, to respond to emails. Also, what did she say?
Maybe to cook.
Maybe
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a good point. People sometimes get worried about AI coming in and replacing the things that you enjoy to do. I like to think of it more as like the dishwasher or your washing machine. It's supposed to be a tool that helps you do the things that you have to do, but it's going to make it easier on you. So I know right now you guys might see things, and if you go to the next slide, you might see things like Midjourney that produce these amazing images, sometimes very dystopian in nature. And it might seem like, hey, that's kind of what I do. That's fun for me. I want to do the mood boards. I want to do the concept paintings. And you can still do that. You can now just do that faster. And what does that mean for you competitively? What does that mean in terms of winning work faster? Things like that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity as AI grows once we start going into AGI, once we get into general intelligence mode, and you have, we're going to have AIs out there that are going to have the entire knowledge of all human history and civilization. And that's a little scary if you guys have seen Terminator. Skynet's real. But for now, the tools that we have available really are made to help supplement the skill sets that you guys might be lacking or the things that you don't want to do. So like you see on the screen for mood boarding, you've got some of these cool tools. But if you guys hate drawings and you don't actually like, doing all the dimensions and doing all that stuff yourself, you got category 4, the blue one over there. You've got all sorts of tools that are coming out now that will auto-dimension, auto-create BIM models for you. Like if you're using SketchUp or anything like that, it'll take a concept model and turn it into a BIM model and then turn that into drawings and dimension it all for you. And so there's a lot of tools out there that are filling the gaps for things that you might not want to do. I always love to talk about Evolve Lab, and there's a couple products in there. Varus, Glyph, Helix. Varus is one of those awesome tools for renderings and visualizations. It'll take, you can take a picture of this bouquet of flowers and it'll try to turn it into an architectural building for you. And that kind of stuff, it might not be useful in the sense of no structural engineer is going to actually use it. But in terms of like the influence that you guys have, the creativity of being able to visualize that so easily now, you can see something that catches your attention and say, that would look cool in whatever way. And if you imagine it, the AI can create it for you. And I think that's not really going to replace what you guys do. In fact, I think it's going to, what you said, it's going to enhance your creativity. And so I think I'll let Dawn take over now.
Well, I'll say, so I think architects have done a really good job, maybe urban planners, things like that, have done a really good job at these kind of technologies where they're being really visionary. There's like the infamous story, right, where Frank Gehry takes and crumples a pieces of paper and he throws it on the table and he's like, that's what the museum's going to look like. And everybody around the table is like, I don't really know how to model that. I don't really know how to I don't know how to build that. Like, but technology helped them then think through how do you take that and scan it, bring it up, explode it, then get in it, circle around and figure out how to like really sculpt space out of that. And you get buildings like the Bilbao Museum, right? So you get these amazing things, and I think interior has this opportunity to do something similar where we can begin to really truly sculpt interiors, really take a floral picture and think, what would it be like to be in there? And as we lean more into experiential design and really bridging all dimensions, not just plan and elevation, but really three-dimensionally thinking about it, using these tools helps us get there faster, helps us really innovate and be extremely creative, much more so than maybe we have in the past, commercially, residentially, kind of all across the market sectors that we see. And there are these opportunities where we can lean into, which is really where I'm excited about it. Yes, there's the ethical concerns. There's a lot to really consider as we look at these. But one of the things that does excite me is the opportunities, the ways that we might be able to think about this and the things that it might open up for us that we hadn't thought about before, and allow us to really be visionary and innovate quickly, often, just like repeat multiple iterations of a project or a design before making a decision that we then have to push forward.
I think at ASID, one of the things we want to make sure is that, you talked a little bit earlier about technology, 10, 20 years ago took a lot of money, took server rooms, it took really expensive computers, and now we have the capability, because of that exponential growth, it's gotten better, quicker, and also more democratized because it's less expensive. So our phones can actually do the things that computer rooms used to do 100 years ago or 20 years ago.
Versus I think the software that Gary was using was hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So what's great about a design in a room like this, and commercial designers, residential designers, sole proprietors, is it gives everybody a chance to do the same tools, have the same creativity, thought process, and produce really excellent work that's elevating the entire industry as a whole. Yeah,
it lets us be extremely creative. It's not really supplanting us either. So I think if you look online, it's now getting easier as my eyes get better to see those ones that aren't really going to work, right? Like, so it's created an image, and I was playing with some of these softwares too that you had shared that in our sort of pre-call that I hadn't heard of. And it was quickly taking an image and making it steampunk, making it modern. It was just like, you just click on style and it throws it up there. And you look at it and it's initially really compelling. And then you're like, okay, well, it's lost like the door. And, like, where'd the staircase go? So it still needs someone as the mathematician to control it, to give it the prompts, to really evaluate it, to actually bring it to reality.
Yep.
Like, this is a great creative tool. A lot of these are vision, helps us visualize things. But you still have to have the expertise. And so we're still going to be sitting there trying to really figure out how to pull this off.
Whether or not you're hand drafting using AutoCAD or Revit,
somehow it's got to get built.
It still has to get built, and you need that trained eye to be able to look at it.
And that's where the construction pros come in.
Yeah.
But I will say that what construction lacks is the human touch. And at Universal Studios, the show set folk, the interior designers, the creative minds that are creating these immersive worlds. You mentioned experiential design being something that's becoming more prevalent. That is the human factor. When you walk into a space, like I just walked into the lobby, and you look up and you see trees, and it's this grand, that is beautiful. It evokes emotion in you. And, maybe if you love the brutalist, you like that style, but I love the variety that, humans can create. And so that's what these tools are for, I think, is to kind of open up a lot of doors to creativity. And you're going to start to see a lot more of it because things become cheaper. The software becomes cheaper. The hardware is cheaper. It means a lot more of you can start using these things and create high quality interiors on par with Universal Studios or Walt Disney World. I was talking to Chad earlier, Lisa Leotti, she's right next to me. She was the interior designer for Harry Potter Ministry of Magic. And it took like 2 to 3 months just to find the right tile for the Ministry of Magic, because it's that beautiful green color, but it needed to be able to withstand people constantly walking on it. It couldn't actually be real tile because that was way too expensive. It needed to be slip resistance because you're going through a flue tunnel with smoke that's really water vapor. There's so many considerations that go into it that We ended up having to hire a material scientist to figure out like what to create for this environment. AI can now, you can say those things to it and it'll make a recommendation for you. You know, so things like that, it's at your fingertips now, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely increasing or helping our productivity in terms of giving us options quicker and faster.
Yeah.
So switching gears just a little bit, let's think a little like who's actually looking at AI, you know, and implementing it. Maybe a quick poll. Is anyone using AI on a weekly, daily basis? Okay, that's a good number. I think a lot of us are using ChatGPT. I use it to help write proposals or, you know, WordCraft emails when I need to tone the language down to make it more professional. But
Smooth
you know,
it out. How can
give it
I
a little
restate
more.
yeah.
When I'm talking to a contractor, give it a
Yes.
you know, the calm vibe.
Soften.
I think
Yeah, you could. That's a command. Soften.
what strikes me is I think, you know, oftentimes as designers we use tools like this as differentiators, as our sales tactic to either win the next job or do something to elevate, you know, our firm or ourselves. I think what's interesting about this is the industry overall, other industries are doing this together. So I think what we have to figure out as a group of designers and manufacturers that support designers is how do we do this all together, share the right information, and elevate the industry as a whole. Part of that comes from sort of the existential crisis of our design time being you know, taken into you know, another opportunity cost for a contractor, or you know, the designer just losing a little bit more of a seat at the table. So selfishly, I want to make sure designers stay at the table, and these are the tools that I think will keep us there. So it's good to see everyone looking at what these tools could be. I don't think, you know, like as fast as it's changing, I think more things are going to keep evolving and rising to the top. But I think as long as we share those topics, keep having conversations about it, it will keep pushing the industry forward. So let's talk a little bit about trends then. So that's sort of the tactical side, the software side, and we can come back to that when we get to questions and answer. So what is, you know, all of this is about the research. How do we make design better, right? So where is the information coming from? How do we craft the right questions to ask? And maybe talk a little bit about where those opportunities are for research.
So there's a lot of people who are really interested in this topic, and you're seeing a lot of stuff published. And so one of the things I do is I go out and try to read all of that. And then this is coming from the Trends report that we publish in January every year. And one of the things that I kept seeing is this notion of productivity, right? And Jamie Dimon was very provocative, and he said, we're going to move to a 3.5-day work week. And this all is going to, you know, create productivity. We're going to make us so productive and it's so efficient that we're going to be able to move to a 3.5 work week. Well, if we think historically, we've had lots of things that have helped us move and be more productive, Industrial Revolution, all kinds of things. And all we do is fill that time. It's not like we really work 3.5 days. But what we can do is something to Alan's point, is if we can get more efficient and more productive, then that allows us to fill our time with the other things that we do enjoy and the things that we lean into and let us hone our experience or dabble in other areas or really like lean into our creativity. And so one of the things that we saw in the trends was that AI was transforming and it was paving this way for the shorter work week. And people are really trying to think through, like I said, these sort of tools for productivity. One of the things that we're doing and using are the language models. We're looking at simple softwares like Read Assistant or Copilot. Some of these like things that help me on my daily basis deal with the email barrage that I get and prioritize and then put it, and it immediately goes, I can, you know, highlight them and then it immediately goes to my to-do list. I can rank my to-do list so that for each day, and I can give it a deadline so that it automatically prompts me. You know, so I have on my phone my Microsoft to-do list, and then I can see what I need to do today. What are my tasks that I have to click off? What are my deadlines? You know, it sort of helps me like prioritize and think through a big project, right? But also like Read Assist is something that we're using that sort of records meetings. We have these team meetings, and it just sort of automatically gives me a printout of the recording that then I can edit for meeting minutes, right? And I can tell you I'm using it and it's not perfect, but it is at least a couple of steps. They're getting better. But it'll give, it'll sort of give me a summary of the meeting. It gives me action steps, or at least what it thinks the action steps are that are coming out. And it's just one more way to sort of help me versus me trying to transcribe. And I'm taking notes. It's not like it's going to completely erase that. So I'm still taking notes and making sure I'm noting key points, key decisions, things like that. But then it allows me to just kind of quickly write those meeting minutes, put them in the records, and get back. It also allows you to do things like keywords and a lot of your file systems so that you can quickly find those things, or you can quickly find the image, or you can keep your records more succinct and easier when you've got to find the file for the contractor that you forgot what you did, which was sketch 4 weeks ago, on a Tuesday. So it'll allow you to sort of give you these sort of quick prompts. So it's really these sort of small tools that we're finding that are easier for people to use. And it is increasing productivity for those who are leaning into it. So that's one of the big trends that we're seeing. It started last year. We're really seeing people embrace it this year, and it's really becoming part of people's everyday sort of work process.
And also, if you tried to hire someone recently, or we know the job market is pretty tight, it doesn't look like it's going to be getting any better anytime soon. So as a partner at a small firm, my goal is to obviously keep new talent and students gainfully employed. But how do we, instead of maybe the 3-day work week, make it a 4-day, but maybe be more productive, right? More maybe help out with our fees and costs just a little bit, so we're more efficient with our time.
Right. There's softwares to help that sort of measure your time. The time goes immediately to a job. It immediately turns into invoices, and so it's versus manually having to sort of track those kinds of things.
AI can also save the day. I had booked this event as being on Saturday for some reason. I think we discussed that at some point. So I had it in my calendar as Saturday. I did not have it for today. Yesterday, I'm like, why are you guys wanting like the PowerPoint like right now? We're talking like the AV checks. Yeah, it's because it was today. So I had to sit down yesterday with ChatGPT to review the meetings that we had. I had my meeting minutes from Read AI, what we had talked about, her outline. I got talking points. I then used Tome AI to create these like preliminary draft slides of how the information that you saw in those, the history of AI, the steps. And then I took that, I brought it into Canva, and I was able to pull off those slides that, I think they look semi-professional level. And I was able to pull it off in like 5 hours, like yesterday for this event. And so that kind of thing, having that at my fingertips and not having to stay up all night, like on PowerPoint doing it myself and coming up with something maybe not as professional, that's the kind of thing that's going to save you guys when you have presentations with owners, with your clients, with things like that. Things happen, life happens. And so to be able to have the technology to save your on the day of, it's a really cool thing to have.
Wait, I have heard several designers I know are also doing that when the client, because this is inevitable, right? Like you're supposed to meet next week on Wednesday, but something's happened, and they're like, "Can we meet tomorrow at 1?" You're like, "Of course we can," and so now you have like 12 hours or 24 hours if you pull an all-nighter to somehow create a presentation, right? And so I have seen designers kind of really using these tools to kind of maybe do some quick renderings, and they'll pitch it as creativity, and it's just kind of visioning, and it's but it's ways that you can still pull it off, a quick presentation in a very short amount of time that looks professional and allows you to sort of still hold that meeting. And again, that's productivity, right? It's about sort of increasing your productivity.
Well, and to your point earlier, you were the expert at knowing what you're talking about, so you could do a quick check of the slides. You knew that it was right. So you're not going into it blindly. You knew how to craft it and sort of point it in that direction.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of you have seen that, like Microsoft Projects or PowerPoint now has that, right? Like it gives you design suggestions, right? And it's a starting point. So it gives me a design suggestion. I don't like them, but it's a starting point, right? Like I'm gonna fiddle with it. But it's easier than just kind of starting totally from scratch with a blank white slide.
And in the slide, and we can go back to it later, but in the slide with all the different tools, there's categories of things that you guys do in your day-to-day that you might not want to do. You guys might want to focus on the creativity, on the mood boards, and you guys don't really care about the communication or marketing of it, but you need to do marketing if you have a business, right?
Right.
And so having some of the tools like Typeset or Canva to be able to create content for you, to be able to do case studies off of the work that you've done, create your portfolios, all sorts of things that would have taken you weeks, or maybe you'd have to hire a third party for. Now you guys are able to do it yourselves in-house.
Yep.
And that's going to save time, it's going to save money, and you're going to get that higher quality product throughout. And I think you make a great point. As the whole industry starts to adopt these things, you tend to elevate the entire industry with it. Because the more that you guys use these tools and the consistency grows and the quality grows, it's going to be you guys that reap the benefits. It's going to be you guys that lead the way to that future where AI is just something that everybody uses. So it's cool that you guys are here learning from this, because the first movers have the advantage.
I think it's also interesting to me, and also I think the most exciting is for sole proprietors, small businesses. If you're not lucky enough to have full-time marketing or full-time PR, this is what gives you that leg up advantage to really, remind you, oh, I do need to do a social media post, but I'm busy working on actual projects, but we actually do need to get in front of this. So can it augment you? Can it help? I know there was a discussion earlier today on social media and kind of marketing. So I think that's ripe for, plugging AI into.
Yeah, so we are seeing that people are using AI and a lot of these tools to really sort of drive some of their brand engagement. So one of the things that we know from the research that we're doing is that people still get, a lot of their clients, in fact, most of them through relationships. So it's not that it's someone's going to, there are a few cases, right, where someone sees an Instagram post and says, I want that designer. Most of the time, if that's the case, they're still going to ask, and they'll sort of ask around.
Usually they just want to paint color from you.
Yeah.
They're like, what paint did you use?
Well, true. So it's not the job that maybe you were dying to get, but we are seeing people need to have an online presence, right? So people are having need to have that online presence so people can engage with their brand, and some of these tools are able to sort of, again, do this for you a little more easier or faster, and send you those reminders to sort of continue to have that sort of cadence. We know that algorithms are real, and they are something that people are trying to figure out how to work around, and so we're moving from photos now to video, where people are wanting to sort of engage with things differently, and sort of designers are needing to stay kind of on top of that and really think through what tools they have where they can. And our phones are easy because we can take video kind of quickly, but then uploading that and trying to using the technology to sort of make that seamless, make that easy, not make it such a heavy lift that it has been in the past, where you did have an entire marketing department creating content and constantly posting and then monitoring, and now there's sort of these tools to help us do with that. And we're seeing people use, especially in the residential sector, they're able to use that digital marketing, and it's directly tied to e-commerce. So as you said, you can now snap a picture of anything and it'll tell you where to find it. So you can embed within that a place to your shop, your store, your product. And so it makes it sort of an easy one-stop see, purchase, deliver, and people are utilizing that to their advantage as well.
And I know I'm probably not the only one in this room, but every time I get a phone call, I get that panic attack. I don't want to talk to people on the phone sometimes anymore. I'm so used to just everything is electronic and automatic. That's kind of the world that I enjoy, and that might just be me. But it's cool because there are tools out there now that pass the test for the Turing test. They've gone past the uncanny valley. And
do you guys know what the Turing test is?
Thank you. It's when you are speaking to an artificial intelligence or a computer or something, you can tell it's a computer. Like when you see a chat bot on most websites, the chat bot is pretty basic, right? You can tell it's a chat bot. We've gotten to the point now, though, that there are tools out there that VCs are funding heavily that will banter with you, keep up with you, change languages with you. It sounds like you're talking to a real person. It has definitely fooled me. And we're getting to the point that it's not just voice now. Now it's like video too. You see all sorts of AI videos out there on social media. You're gonna have, you can create an avatar of yourself and have your voice do all of that for you. If you want to have a webinar, you can have that show up. And
yes, and we're using that for, you said the Turing test is sort of that barometer of like, should we not? Should we not, right? It's
I'm like,
this
let's go for it.
barometer, and I'm like, not really sure, right? Like, so, but we have this, this a set of principles that's sort of put in place by, I think the tech industry, right? In injunction with psychologists and things like that we're trying to figure out like, where's that line supposed to be? And you're seeing lots of people talk about that line, which is not what we're here talking about today, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew when he said the Turing test, kind of what that was. But it's that sort of line of kind of thinking through what should we not? And a lot of people who are using all of this stuff, a lot of people are just tagging it. It's electronically created as kind of a way to sort of ethically say, I use this really cool software to create these renderings. There's a couple here. Which do you like? What's the direction you want to go in? It's sort of embedded within your conversation without trying to sort of, be dishonest about it, right? So there's a lot of those kind of things that people are putting those guardrails in. And the Turing test is kind of what some of that is trying to help. Structure.
I think an interesting way to think about it is sort of the growth of, years ago we heard of the Internet of Things, so smart homes or, refrigerators with Wi-Fi. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, why do I need my fridge to have Wi-Fi? But, it really goes back to, integrated chatbots, basically being able to talk to you in real time. I've interacted with some chatbots I thought was a real person until they had to put me through the phone to get to a real person. So I think it's getting to the point, and it goes back a little bit to where smart home technology, 20, 30 years ago was only for really, really high-end houses. And now you can have it in any apartment, any level of a house. So it's interesting to see the democratization of those kinds of tools, and AI is getting integrated into those components. Microsoft has AI tools built into, it was the old Clippy back in the day, and now it's the new version to reproof and make sure your tone is correct. So maybe let's talk a little bit then about, some of the, maybe how that technology is connected. So the smart buildings, the way that the kind of customization of things, kind of the research behind that.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that we saw and things that sort of make their way are trying to solve a problem. So maybe it's, I'll think of an example in a minute. But they're either trying to solve a problem or it's sort of convenience, right? So the refrigerator trying to be connected to the Wi-Fi was so that I didn't have to create a grocery list, right? It's not going to get me all the way to where it's going to cook for me, right? But it's at least taking that one menial step kind of out of the day and automatically. And that list now can not only go just to my pantry app or whatever it is, whatever app of your choice that gives you my laundry list, which is now all like, you can, customize it by your store, and so you can get it in order, but now it'll just go straight to the cart and deliver to your house, right? Yep. So that's all trying to help you with convenience, right? But we're also using and seeing technology to solve problems. So, and as we think about this with, so one of the examples we think through is sort of adaptive living. Or sort of ways that we're using smart technologies early in homes to think through so we knew when people who were older fell, or could we contact them? These sort of early uses, and then it gets from there. Things like the glass, right, Google Glass and things like that, those are great if you have, if you're visually impaired, right? So you may have, I have a couple seniors at Georgia State doing their senior thesis is on a visually impaired space. And that would be great for someone who is visually impaired. It would be a way to sort of help them think about the space. So it's kind of like, it's solving a problem. So we're thinking about convenience and solving problems, and now people are able to think through how do we take that, so it's beyond Sonos in my house, play music right now that's calming, because I'm freaking out, right? So it's beyond some of those things, and it's really, people are thinking, okay, how can I use those things to really lean into experiential design in my home, right? So now I can create a whole ambiance, I can set a whole mood, it can be more, it's not only about the sound, but it's also about the lighting. And it may tie to sense now. So you're really sort of seeing those things come together, and we can set moods and tones. Some people do it for a party. Some people do it just for like it's the afternoon. I need to like calm myself. I need some more of a meditation type environment versus a excitable morning kind of thing. So we're really seeing this personalization, customization kind of come with the technology. So it's for example, we have Sonos at my house, and I have a persona, and my husband has a persona. My car has personas. We just got a new car, and he has a setting, and I have a setting. And if we go in, and it's my radio stations, and then all the things. So this is all this personalization, customization that we're seeing, and it's really prevalent now. We've seen it in the commercial markets, used in healthcare. We've seen it in offices where they're really trying to think through circadian rhythms, and we've seen it there at sun shading, really kind of thinking through some sustainable initiatives, water usage. But we're really seeing that move into the residential markets as well, where people are trying to use it in unique and different ways than we have in the last decade.
So it's really AI bringing it to life.
Yeah.
It's really giving it the magic that you had to either program the button, but now you don't need a button to
Right.
And Dawn, you make a great point of now you can use these tools to solve problems. I think that's really cool, because for the longest time we've relied on the technology to come solve our problems. Now we've gotten to the point where the technology is given to us to solve our own problems. You guys have the tools with which to create all sorts of solutions to all sorts of problems that might be unique to you, but what's unique to you might be applicable to an entire niche market that you guys can then go after. And in the spectrum of engineering and interior design, the creativity that you guys have, that's why you guys are interior designers, right? You guys thrive with that creativity, and that's my favorite thing about AI, is that it's allowing all of you to have that entrepreneurial spirit. That's the whole point of entrepreneurism. It's solving problems through technology or through businesses, and you guys now individually all have the ability to solve all sorts of problems around you.
It's really coming, if we think through, so we used to, we hand drafted to then, computer aided drafting to then, and that moved into BIM models. And the moving into the BIM models was really trying to help me, I didn't like to write specs. And so if I could use a BIM model, then everything I pulled in to create my model automatically had a spec, and so then it would just output for me what I needed for my specs, right? And then as we get into some of the engineering that you were saying, it will automatically do a sun model for me. It will automatically do the shading for me. And it will, I can, we're sort of adding all these layers to solve problems. Like, I want to save energy. How could I do that? Well, it'll run a model. And now we've moved to where, okay, I want to, it knows that today is a certain day, and it's automatically, I have a certain amount of daylighting, and it's changing that lighting level. And so I'm saving energy, and I have the right lighting levels. And we've been doing that in commercial, but now I'm seeing that also kind of in the residential, and people taking advantage of where the technology was sort of marching along to help me solve some productivity things, but now it's actually able to feed back and sort of adjust things given parameters that I've set at some point. And it knows that it's January 22nd or June 15th. And it's sort of adjusting things for you.
So it's interesting, if you look back at the categories of productivity, right? You have your, let's help it write specs and do the things you may not want it to do. I think right now, most of us think of the AI tools that look creative or the rendering tools.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit more about maybe the craftsmanship side of that. So how can AI really take it to maybe the next level of being that critical eye for you?
So one of the things that I was enamored with, I went to High Point and saw this sink, and someone brought it to my attention. But this was created out of in Midjourney. So someone had an idea. They were sort of playing with what can we do with AI, how can we use AI, and then how does it really kind of come to fruition. And they had a series of prompts that created a series of images, and then of course they curated those images and determined which they felt would be interesting. And then there was a couple of iterations there, working back and forth between the designer and the manufacturer, right? And they settled on this sink basin, right, which is a practical thing, which then through the AI then sort of sent it out, then gets fabricated, right? And so you're seeing, it's still, and it's a beautiful piece, and there's still a lot of artisan to it, although it was maybe sort of through AI. But then you've got to work with the trade, who are these artists and craftsmen, to really kind of bring to fruition. So there is this now pairing that we're seeing in interiors. Like I said, we've seen it in architecture, maybe between sort of very complex structures that were being built with contractors to get those things built, the Frank Gehry work, and others like it. But now we're seeing this in interiors too. So you have sort of, we're modeling things, thinking through things and being creative, exporting it out, and then either 3D printing it, CNC routing it. There's any number of things that we're able to do, and then let the craftsmen polish and really sort of bring it to fruition. And this sort of back and forth and support between one another through AI.
I love that. Rock work. If you guys have seen Volcano Bay at Universal Studios, it's a big giant volcano. And the way that came to fruition was someone sculpted a volcano, and that volcano was scanned, and that 3D model was then dissected into a bunch of chips that we could have structural members attached to it so that they could go to fabrication. Then you have the full-size chips come onto site. We 3D printed that sculpted model so that everyone knew what it would be. And then next thing you know, a year later, you've got a whole 200-foot tall volcano. And that kind of process where you physically started by hand sculpting, you end up with this thing. It's so cool that now you're able to do that much, much faster with all these tools that are available to us.
We can iterate. So how many of you have ever done a full-scale mock-up? Anybody ever done a full-scale mock-up? We used to do those back in the day. We did them in healthcare. We would do a full-scale mock-up and see kind of how the patient and the nurse's station and the visibility, and we were doing these kinds of things, trying to and then we'd make modifications, and then we'd test it for a little while, and then we'd do some more modifications. And so now you can do a lot of that with either VR, or we can run some simulations. There's just a lot of things that we're able to then, like I said, iterate faster, study multiple angles faster, and then directly move to fabrication without having to sort of do so much testing.
Back in the day,
And cost.
back in the day,
much less
back in the day
expensive.
when you had a roller coaster design, especially at like Disney and Universal, you had to physically have this giant foam that was like the 95th percentile human reach, so that as the ride went through the space, if it dinged anywhere, you know, okay, we need more clearance here. It was done by hand so that you wouldn't get your fingers chopped off. Now we've got BIM models and stuff that will analyze that for you right away. We'll tell you, hey, this doesn't clear here, or if it's an ADA compliance thing, hey, you need this walkway to be a little wider, or you're gonna have a lot too much flow here, or this is Florida, the noonday sun is gonna bake that concrete and people are gonna wanna sit on it and they're gonna burn themselves. We have all sorts of warnings for that now because you have the computers that can do these simulations in the background and let you know all these things that back in the day you had to consciously be thinking of and testing out yourself and going out there and seeing what the heat was like. Now you have software that just does that in the background.
Yeah, and then all these tools, the CNC routers and all of these digital tools just allow us to be much more cost effective, much more precise, and it allows us to then spend money on other things. I know the previous session was talking about all four disciplines. We had landscape architecture and interiors and construction, all working together as a team, and just being able to, like I said, prototype or do something more efficiently and more effectively in terms of the process. So we reduce time, we increase quality, and then it allows us to then spend maybe money on other things that we might, like either a different kind of finish or higher level of finish, or the furnishings that typically get cut at the end, or artwork. That's a budget that always takes a hit. So it's sort of like being able to allow us to think through, or put the money where we're really interested, right? Like I want to make a statement, and I can take this moment and I can make a statement and then do some cost savings in some other ways. Just, I don't want to get CNC and all that kind of stuff. It's not always cheaper, but it is kind of, it's a fun tool for sure.
Well, I want to leave a little time for questions, but
Yeah.
Don, you had a really interesting kind of conversational experiment, and I think AI should also have some fun to it, but I think what's interesting is, we also oftentimes think input, I just need an output so I can keep moving forward. So maybe tell us a little bit about this.
So I went to the, or you guys can just listen, but I went to the Las Vegas market and went to the Sphere, which is all about AI and technology. And I gave a prompt to the guy standing there running the robot that I wanted him to wish ASCID a happy anniversary. And this is what she came up with. She, he, they.
Wishing the American Society of Interior Designers a fantastic 50th anniversary. Half a century of creativity, innovation, and transforming spaces is truly commendable. Here's to many more years of setting trends and designing the remarkable environments we love. How have the influences of interior design impacted your own personal spaces?
And so that's an example of a simple input, going out completely, like thinking through what we are, who we are, like all the resources that are out in the web and beyond, and then kind of coming back and sort of giving some kind of summary of that, but then also ending with a point that's conversational. So it's not just simply input and output, it's really sort of trying to be much more of this prompt. Now, to be fair, the Sphere was $1 billion project. So this is not every day, but it is kind of interesting to see kind of where technology's going, what it can do. And again, if we do need to think very strongly about ethics and sustainability and all the other impacts that are there. But as today, we're talking about the opportunities. And so thinking through kind of what those might be, I find it intriguing.
Yeah. All right, well, let's open it up if there's any questions. I think we have a few minutes left. Yep.
So, for me? Okay, there we go.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Are there any developments of integrating Gen AI with product primitives and rules, like upcodes would be a rule set and VR?
In VR, that is something that is in the works. There are companies like Resolve VR that is starting to incorporate AI into it to have real-time ability to modify your room. That's something we use VR headsets all the time with our stakeholders. We sent VR headsets to J.K. Rowling to see the Harry Potter land in that way. That was something that back then I had to go in and edit the buildings around myself. Now you can talk to it and it'll start changing things for you if you don't like it. It's like you were saying, full mock-ups, doing layout changes. You're going to be able to start doing those things virtually while you're wearing it, walking through the space. And that's going to really increase engagement.
I will say that I know that there are several people that the ASID Foundation has given a grant to that are looking at, like, can people really understand what they're doing in VR? Kind of what is their level of interaction? And we're really sort of testing what they really understand. And so there is research kind of going on as this is kind of going in development.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because my company is bridging between that digital idea and the physical delivery.
Nice.
In a network of manufacturing, distributed manufacturing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's we were talking about this in the beginning. I think it's a great way to amplify productivity and eliminate challenges, for sure.
Okay, Chad, earlier you mentioned the importance of human connectivity. And as someone who designs and creates custom patterns for upholstery and drapery, I definitely have been seeing, and you guys probably have too, have been able to see where AI has been brought into that, and AI is creating the patterns and things like that. I know for me, it's always more important to connect with the human being or either my fellow designers to be able to come up with something custom for their clients. So I'm wondering, even seeing more so even a push towards digital samples instead of, physical as well. So I was wondering what you thought, particularly because I know you love AI. So how do you think that that will impact the interior design industry in the future?
So I think, in healthcare world, we deal with a lot of custom upholsteries that have to be, wear tested and, durable. And oftentimes because of the cost of those materials, we do digital mock-ups first, and that lets us think through the concept. I think at the end of the day, whatever the artist, if it's a Suzanne Tick or whoever the artist is behind creating the fabric, the digital mock-up is great to get you to a point. We always need a physical mock-up. We generally won't even approve, buying a yard of something unless we have a physical sample to touch. But it's a good thing to get the digital mock-up because then we can use it in the rendering to sell an idea or a concept to the client. So I think, the idea is there whether or not it's digitally enhanced or it's physical at the end. But if you're going to be printing, 100,000 yards of something, you're going to have the physical sample at some point because screens aren't generally calibrated to the right color temperature. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
I'll just add to this. So we are talking about AI, and it is digital day, right? But the other thing that we identified in the trends report is that people are really interested. There's a pendulum, right? So this is maybe interesting, but at the same time, we're seeing people return back to personal connections, being tactile. There's a huge emphasis right now in texture. People want comfort. People want to be, so there's like this, you kind of have both swings, right? So like the AI is interesting and it's able to let us see quickly kind of what this would look like, particularly at a large scale. Like I know convention centers do that, right? They'll look at that. But in the end, you still got to have the tactile. You still have to have the expert telling you how to use it, where it's going to go, how does it round that corner, how is it trimmed, where is it tucked. All of those things are still going to have to kind of come together. And we see people being very much wanting that.
It's the scientific calculator analogy.
Yeah.
It's the user. The AI can create all sorts of custom patterns, but it might not have any soul in it unless you tell it to have some soul. And you're going to have to specify, like the green tiles in the Ministry of Magic aren't just green. They also have that black because the fireplaces create that soot. And that detail is something that you might have to specify. So you're going to have to tell your scientific calculator, hey, these are all the things that are going on. Here's the atmosphere. Patterns are cool, but the story behind the patterns sometimes are even better.
People want narrative.
I have the Palestinian keffiyeh right here, and the story behind it, the olive leaf patterns, the symbolism of the ocean, things like that, that is what makes a lot of the stuff that you guys do beautiful, not just because it's a cool pattern. It's the story behind it, and you are still in control of that story. The AI is just the tool to help you create it faster.
Yeah, we saw like the previous year, the word of the year was authentic. And that's not changed. People have just doubled down, and they want not only the authentic, they want the story. Mm-hmm. They want to know why. And we saw that at NeoCon with the Momentum new textile that came out was just exploding because it had a whole story about it and the color and the significance of it and all the things.
When it comes to security, should we delete our data at some point? I know it probably works better that...
It's too late. But seriously, everyone is aware of the security risks with using AI, and most of the companies that are leading the forefront have councils to combat that, to make sure that they're not training their models with your data, to have all that segregated. I mean, when the US government starts using these tools and things get FedRAMP approved, you know it's at least been vetted. Your data, I mean, let's be real, it's 2025, your data is out there probably. But in terms of what the AI is going to use, I feel comfortable using the tools as long as I'm using the enterprise modes that I can say, hey, don't ever share my stuff for your models. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. Now, always check. We have clients that don't allow us to use AI chatbots in Teams because of their confidentiality requirements. And we also, for our servers, and we have a small firm, we use firewalls and VPN access just to secure all of that. So security is a big concern. So it's a good question to bring up because, you know, if it's something confidential, obviously keep it inside of your network. That doesn't mean you can't use AI for it. You just need to check where the AI information is coming from and that your information isn't going back into the ecosystem, if that makes sense. Yep.
Any more questions? Nothing else? No? Last chance. Okay.
I just came back from Malaysia, from the Malaysian International Furniture Fair, and I went to their AI session, and this is the hot topic that is all over our industry. And so I appreciate what you three have brought to the table today and shared with this group, and I admire the attendance. So it's something that really is tickling our fancy, and we want to know more and how we can use it in our work to make things work better for us.
And if you want to learn more, stay connected with us at ASID. There's information that Dawn has put here for research, as well as membership for ASID, a shameless plug for our organization. But yeah,
All
please.
the research is free to members.
Yep. So please take advantage of that research component. And we would love to make this an ongoing discussion. There's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
This is barely scratching the surface. So let's do this again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And truly thank you to everybody, ASID, everybody that's here that's with ASID. What an amazing organization for our industry. And thank you, everyone on this panel. This was wonderful. And I want to just remind everybody and invite you all to the ASID Sip and Stroll. Again, that's going to be happening at Ernest Gaspard, Travis and Company, Hibachi Designs, and Milieu. And we have flyers that will tell you where all of those are located. Thank you again for joining us for Digital Day, and we hope to see you back for more events at ADAC, and particularly Get Down to Business in the fall. Thank you so much.